Some of the hardest lessons I've ever learned came wrapped in heartbreak, confusion, and silence. I didn't ask for them, but they gave me boundaries, they gave me self-respect, and a whole lot of clarity. And even though I wouldn't want to relive those moments, I cannot deny that they are a part of the reason I'm here today, encouraging other women to dream big, take up space, and stop apologizing for wanting more. Today, we're going to talk about the lessons I didn't want, but definitely needed. Maturing and healing means realizing that maybe, just maybe, you did need to learn some of those hard lessons to get to the version of you that exists today. Now, before someone jumps in with, but I didn't have to learn that lesson that way, I completely agree. I'm not here to romanticize the pain or say that we deserve the things that hurt us. No, not at all, not even a little bit. I don't believe trauma is a necessary ingredient for growth. But I also cannot deny that I have grown from some of the hardest moments of my life. Some of the lessons I learned as a kid, especially in my 20s, they cracked me wide open. They humbled the shit out of me. They shaped the way I move through the world. And even though I didn't ask for them, those lessons gave me the resilience, the boundaries, and let's be honest, the lady balls to build the life that I'm living today. So yeah, today's episode is all about turning lemons into a lemon drop martini. Hi everyone, and welcome to Taking Up Space with Jordan. I'm your host, Jordan, and I'm so glad you found my little corner of the internet. If you're new here, hi, hey, hello. I started this platform to encourage women to build their dream lives, one honest and transparent conversation at a time. In today's episode, I'm walking you through some of the hardest lessons I had to learn. And if you have already learned some of these lessons, you've been there, done that, go ahead and stick around because I'm not just here to unpack the trauma. I'm here to honor the effort it takes to heal, grow, and keep choosing yourself. And as a quick reminder, before we hop into things, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss a future episode. It continues to be the number one way to support the podcast. Now let's dive into it. Something that often comes up when we start healing is what is the difference between forgiveness and moving on? Because they're not the same thing. Forgiveness is a release, sometimes internal, sometimes directed at another person. And even then, it only holds meaning if the person you're forgiving actually feels remorse. And more often than not, they don't feel remorse. They don't care what they did to you. So moving on, though, that's yours. It's the choice to stop carrying what was never yours to hold in the first place. It's the moment you decide to let go, not for them, but for you yourself. And here's what people don't always tell you. You can forgive someone and still not move on. You can move on without ever forgiving them. You can do both. You can do neither. And all of this is valid. But if you're still holding on, especially to someone who never made space for your pain, you do have to ask yourself, why? Why? For me, a lot of the time, it came down to fear of being alone, fear of missing out. I've held on to relationships, even ones that were hurting me, because I didn't want to feel excluded. I thought that maybe if I stayed, if I kept giving and kept showing up, they'd finally see me, finally change. But when I finally let go, when I finally stopped shrinking to stay connected, I realized something major. I didn't need an apology to heal. I didn't need a final conversation. I didn't even fucking need closure. I didn't need to forgive them in order to be free. I just needed to stop holding on to people who had already emotionally let me go. I'd rather face the world alone than feel like an afterthought or a burden ever again. You don't have to forgive someone to move forward with your life, but you do have to stop letting what they did to you define how you see yourself. Forgiveness, if you choose it, should be about peace, not this performative piece of your life. And you don't owe anyone a forgiveness conversation either. Sometimes peace looks like choosing distance. No dramatic goodbye, no big confrontation, just choosing yourself instead. So now that we know the difference between forgiveness and letting go, I want to kind of dive into a few lessons that I think kind of embody this. There were so many lessons that I could have chosen from because I'll be honest, I could teach a whole school, a whole K through 12 class on life lessons, but these are the ones that have shaped me the most when I really think about it. You might have learned them differently or at a different time, but I think a lot of us have had to face these different lessons at some point in our lives. Lesson 1: pleasing people keeps you small. Pleasing others is not inherently bad. Just to be so clear, I know there's a lot of people out there that are just natural givers, they're natural caretakers. And I need to be clear, people pleasing and you being put on this earth to please others, you want to please your loved ones, that's not inherently wrong. There's nothing wrong with being kind or caring about how your choices affect people around you. I think that is a very beautiful thing, to be so aware of how you interact with the rest of the world and how you can impact other people around you. But when you consistently put everyone else's needs above your own, you start disappearing piece by piece. It's exhausting, not because you're doing too much, but because you're doing everything for everyone else. You're juggling everyone's comfort, opinions, and moods, and you're quietly sidelining your own. It shows up in these small moments: saying yes to dinner when you're already drained, agreeing to plans that you don't want to, playing peacekeeper just to avoid some awkwardness, even something as small as playing a board game you don't like just to keep the vibe light. But here's the truth: you don't owe anyone your constant yes. If you don't want to do something, it's okay to say something. There's so many ways to set that boundary, and I think a lot of us are afraid with just saying no. But a couple of my favorites are, I'm not up for it tonight, or I don't have the brain space for that. And above all, saying just the word no. That's my favorite. Full stop. Just no. But I didn't always feel safe saying no. I used to feel punished for it. If I declined going home for the weekend, I'd get hit with guilt. If I said no to my ex, I was suddenly cold or boring or even worse, controlling. And that's when I realized, when you start choosing yourself, some people are going to resent it. People pleasing was one of the hardest habits I had to unlearn, not because I didn't want boundaries, but because I wanted to be appreciated. I wanted to feel valued. I wanted people to be as grateful for me as I was for them. But the hard truth is, some people are going to take advantage of your kindness. They're going to expect you to bend because you always have. And when you start standing your ground, even quietly, even subtly, it threatens that dynamic that they have always benefited from. The shift doesn't have to be this big dramatic thing. It can be in the small ways that you reclaim your time, your voice, your space. And yes, that shift is going to come with fear. Fear of rejection, fear of conflict, fear of being seen as selfish. But what you gain is so much more powerful, which is your voice, your time, your freedom. Saying no isn't mean spirited. Sure, you can say it in a way that is mean spirited. By all means, go ahead if you need to. But it's honest, it's necessary, and it doesn't make you a bad person. You know that you care deeply. You know that you show up for the people that you love. But that doesn't mean that you owe them constant access to your energy. Setting boundaries isn't this cruel thing, it's clarity. And the truth is, you can't be everything to everyone and still show up for yourself. Lesson 2: hyper-independence isn't a flex. This one is for my hyper-independent girlies. It's not the flex that we think it is. I'm so good at living alone, thriving in silence, doing everything my own way. I'm probably too good at it. It's absolutely one of my superpowers. It's also something, though, that I have to watch very carefully, because that I got it energy, it came from pain. After my separation and eventual divorce, I went into full prove it mode. I felt like I had to show the world I didn't need anybody, that I was capable of doing all on my own. I was that bitch. And it worked until it didn't. What I was really doing was living in a survival mode for too long. I made decisions out of fear. I shut people out. I isolated myself from the very friends I could have leaned on. And the worst part, I was furious. I was angry. I was so depressed. And I was telling myself, no one's helping me, while also refusing to let anyone actually show up for me. And isn't that the irony of it all? We hyper independent girlies, we want it both ways. We want someone to help us, but we want that help to look exactly how we would do it. Otherwise, it feels like a loss of control. I remember condensing an entire house into a 1-bedroom apartment, packing, lifting, organizing, doing it all alone. And my family offered to help. My friends did too. But I kept saying no because I didn't want to look weak. And in truth, I was embarrassed during that time of my life. So instead, I stayed up until 2 or 3 in the morning packing, woke up at 6 a.m. for work, came home, started all over again. I was exhausted, I was burnt out, and I was scared, but still not asking for help. And here's the thing, my hyper independence, it came from being let down so many times that I truly believed that I was the only person that I could count on. But when I couldn't even count on myself anymore, when I was too tired to function, I finally had to say it. I need your help. And people showed up. My support system was there all along. I just had to let them in. It still takes a lot for me to say those words, I need your help. It doesn't come naturally to me, and I'm still unlearning the reflex to do everything myself. But what I've come to understand is that asking for help doesn't make me weak. And this is probably the best lesson for lesson number 2. If I could just talk to the younger version of me who thought that she had to do it all on her own, I'd tell her this. It's okay to rest. It's okay to be held. It's okay to lean on others. Needing rest doesn't make me lazy. Accepting support doesn't make me incapable. We can't shoulder everything on our own while also trying to build our dream lives. Because building your dream life isn't a solo mission. It takes softness, connection, and community. And asking for help, that's not weakness. That's wisdom. Lesson number 3. Some love is not meant to last. I touched on this theme in my episode on outgrowing people, which I'll link here and again down in the comments. But let me say it plainly, not all love is meant to last. That might sound morbid or a little depressing, but it's the truth. Not everyone in your life is meant to be your forever, whether that's romantic or platonic. And that doesn't mean the relationship wasn't meaningful. It just means that it had a season. Now, I'm not saying we should live in constant fear that every connection that we make is going to end. Quite the opposite, actually. We should fully enjoy the time that we have with the people in our lives without assuming that it'll end, but also without pretending that it never could. Confusing? I get it. Because this isn't about how we show up in relationships while they're happening. This is about what comes after. The breakup, the friendship drift, the unfollow, the texts are deleted, the numbers are blocked. This is about the quiet kind of grief, the one that doesn't come with the funerals or the public mourning, but still stings just as deeply. They're alive, they're just not in your life. We are meant to grow, adapt, and evolve. And I think that's part of why so many of us are afraid to change. Deep down, we know that growth often comes with loss. Some of it is expected. Some of it is blindsiding. As I've moved through big pieces of my healing journey, I found myself with a much smaller circle than I used to have. And honestly, I'm happier for it. But that doesn't mean I don't miss the people that were once around me. Even today, as I sat down to write this episode, I found myself thinking about a road trip I took years ago. There were 5 of us. We were 20 years old. We piled into a couple cars and we drove from Seattle to LA. We had no reservations. We had no idea where we were staying. We were just vibing. We camped, we went to Disneyland, and we completely winged it as only 20-year-olds can with just a couple of bucks. And something I honestly can't imagine doing today, full transparency, I need an itinerary. But I miss that version of us. I've outgrown them, and they've outgrown me. But that doesn't erase the laughter, the joy, or the memories that we all created together. There's a quiet kind of grief that comes with outliving versions of ourselves, the versions who we were fully alive in those moments, surrounded by people who once thought they would always be there. That version of me was a bright-eyed college girl. She was falling in love for the first time. She was carefree, she was optimistic, and she was surrounded by people who made her feel seen. And she truly believed those people would be in her life forever. What I've come to realize, though, is I don't have to erase those memories to move forward. I don't have to pretend those moments didn't matter. I can still look through the old photo albums and smile. I can carry that joy with me without carrying the people who no longer fit the life that I'm building. And that's the beauty of personal evolution. Some relationships exist for a chapter, not the entire book. And when the pain of letting go softens into gratitude for what once was, that's when you know that you're really healed. Our final lesson of the day. We are not too hard to love. Those people were just not equipped. This was a limiting belief that I have had to unlearn and continue actively unlearning. It's also one that loops back to this forgiveness versus moving on conversation from earlier, because at the core of this lesson is understanding that not everyone who hurt you was trying to deliberately destroy you. Some of them were just completely unequipped to love you well or see you, or even love themselves. I've had to move on from people who made me feel unlovable, not because they were inherently evil, but because they were just emotionally unequipped. They made me feel smaller, not because I was too big, but because they had no idea who they were. And when I started to figure out who I was, when I started to grow and heal and to show up in ways that I was proud of, that's when suddenly I became too much. I remember sitting in my old house begging for my boundaries to be respected. I was trying to heal, to grow, to take up space for myself. And in return, I was called cold, manipulative, calculating. And those words stung. And sure, I'm capable of being that. I'm capable of being sharp and guarded, but those labels were never the whole story of who I was. What I've learned is that when someone doesn't love themselves, they will often reject the parts of you that look like self respect. My boundaries felt threatening to someone who had none. My clarity looked like control to someone who was used to chaos. And the people who once claimed to love me, they couldn't love the version of me who no longer made herself small for their comfort. But I also know this now. Just because someone says you're hard to love doesn't mean it's true. Just because they left or blamed you or made you feel impossible to hold doesn't mean that you were the problem. Sometimes the most unskilled, unequipped people are the loudest ones. They use big words to make you feel small. They flash money to make you feel replaceable. They assign shame to your growth because it reflects what they're too scared to face in themselves. It took me a long time to separate their words from my own identity. For a while, I believed them. I believed I was too complicated, too emotional, too sensitive, too this, too that. And I would ask myself, why does love feel so hard for me? But the truth is, love isn't supposed to feel like shrinking. It isn't supposed to come with terms and conditions and caveats and this and that. It doesn't make you beg for your needs to be valid. And here's the biggest shift. I've experienced real love now. Love that doesn't come with strings. Love that isn't about what I can do for someone else, but just about who I am. I'm no one's mother. I'm no one's project. I'm no one's moral compass. I'm just me. And the people in my life today, they love me for that. That alone feels like a complete rejection of every time I was told I was hard to love. I'm learning to love the version of me that sets boundary, that needs rest, that sometimes says no. I'm learning that being loved isn't about performance at all. It's about presence. And if someone couldn't love me without requiring me to abandon myself in the process, they were never equipped in the first place. So if you've ever been told that you were too much or not enough, this is your reminder. You were never too hard to love. They just weren't capable of seeing you clearly. And now you do. All of these lessons, some brutal, some quiet, they've led me here. I don't romanticize the pain that I went through. I don't forgive every person who taught me those lessons, but I have moved on. And I respect the hell out of every version of me who kept going, who kept showing up, who chose healing even when it was messy, slow, and even lonely. And there are so many people in this world who still believe that women don't deserve their own happiness, their own joy, their own dreams. But we do. And we always have. And we always will. It's time that we start taking our power and our control back. You want to be a mom? Be a mom. You want to write a book? Write the damn book. Stop letting the words of unequipped people determine how far you will go. And yes, you might fail. That doesn't make you a failure. You are meant to stumble. That's part of this process. What matters is how you persevere, how you keep going, how you keep living and loving yourself every single day, no matter what. Every single one of my lessons brought me to this platform, brought me to you. I created this space to help women build shame-free dream lives through honest healing conversations. I'm not here to sugarcoat life. I won't pretend the betrayal, the heartbreak, or the loneliness didn't hurt, but I will celebrate the growth. I will honor the strength it took to make it through, and I will continue to show up for myself like I hope you will do for yourself too. We've all had to learn hard lessons, some more painful than others, some that took longer to unlearn. But no matter what you're walking through, I hope this episode reminds you that you're not alone. This space is here for you, and I'm here for you. And I want to be clear, I'm not saying I needed the pain to get here. I like to believe I would have found this version of myself anyway, because this path feels so aligned with who I truly am. But I am proud of the woman who learned how to make a lemon drop martini out of heartbreak, rejection, and confusion. And I know that you've got that in you too. The version of you who survived is not weak. She is the foundation of the version of you who is finally starting to thrive. Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final reflection moment. What's one lesson you didn't ask for but ended up learning anyway? What did it cost you? And what did it give you? If you feel comfortable, I'd love to hear your story. Send me a DM, share it in your journal, or even just say it out loud to yourself. That awareness alone is very powerful and will keep you grounded and will keep you going forward as you walk through life. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If this spoke to you, please share it with a friend who might need the reminder that they're stronger than they realize. And if you're able, rating and reviewing the podcast helps others find the space where they need it the most. Thank you for being here. Thank you for healing. And even when no one was clapping for you, keep up taking space. Until next time, kisses.